Aria is still stalking Lady Crane. You know, she's watching the show. She's kind of liking it. She thinks Lady Crane's a really cool actress. And then Lady Crane catches her backstage after the show, and she's kind of nice to her, and she's like, you know, the queen wouldn't really act like that. And Lady Crane's like, well, how would she act? She's like, you know, she'd be upset, but she'd be mad. You know, this is her son. She gives her a good acting pointer because, of course, Aria was there when this happened, so she can tell her how to better portray it. And they kind of form a little kinship, and I kind of like that. And you can see that after Aria has already put the poison in the room, you can see that she probably is going to feel bad. Lady Crane asks her what her name is, and she says Mercy. I thought that was really cool, that she would say her name is Mercy, because we all know Aria never wanted to kill this woman anyway. So Aria leaves, and she pours her rum. They're all sitting around talking and everything, and right when she goes to put it up to her mouth, Aria runs back in and knocks it out, and everybody's looking at her like, girl, what you doing? And she points to the actress, the other actress in the play who plays a fake Sansa. She says, watch out for that one. She wants you dead. And everybody look at her like, oh, really? The waif was kind of listening in on this whole exchange behind the scenes, and she knows that Aria didn't go forth with it. So she goes back to the House of Black and White, and she kind of tells Jack and Hagar, hey, she didn't do it, your girl choked. And he's like, dang, she had good high hopes. He was like, well, just don't let her suffer. And she's like, yes, which means now she's gonna go and kill Aria. Yeah, Aria went and hid in like this little dark basement-y room thing. Went and got Needle, went and hid, and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna just sit here ready because I know you're coming for me. Walder Frey, who in the book is probably like 100 almost, but still out here making babies. Walder Frey chastises his two sons. One's name is Black Walder, and I can't think of the other one's name, for losing River Run. He's like, I'm assured that you know it's still there, like you didn't just lose a whole castle, like what happened? And they was like, oh, well, the Blackfish showed up, and they had a whole lot of excuses, and he was like, go take it back. And they was like, but we can't. And they was like, well, yeah, you can. So they call out Edmure, who's been held in the dungeon since the Red Wedding, and they tell him, you know, pretty much take Edmure home and use him as bait. Once again, Dany is leading her army through Dothrak and through all the little desert wastelands, and she kind of hears a sound, and she rides off, tells everybody wait there. She comes back riding on Drogon, and I promise you, I think he got bigger from last season. She gives him a really big motivating speech and talking about how she's gonna choose them all to be her blood riders, which is pretty much her homie, and they're all gonna go over to to Westeros and kind of conquer, because that's what she set up for. She set up to like conquer everything. So that's how that episode ended, with everybody like, yay, rallying behind her and really thinking about moving forward. She's getting closer and closer to achieving the Iron Throne, which she has wanted since pretty much the day she was born. Episode 7 is called The Broken Man. It starts when we see these people building this building. They look like a real nice little hippie community. Everybody's building, everything is cool, and there's a guy who's lifting up this big old log, and he's carrying it, and when he puts it down and the camera pans up and turns around, we see it is the Hound. Yes, Sir Sandor Clegane has returned in episode 7 of season 6, and we haven't seen him since long time ago. We haven't seen him since him and Aria parted ways. But yeah, so he's now, you know, working on help build what we now have known to be a sept. While he's helping these people, you know, he's kind of getting some enlightenment and kind of working on things with them. Some brothers of the banners, brothers without banners. Yeah, brothers without banners kind of show up and kind of ask them if they have food or weapons or anything. And they're like, no, you can eat here with us, but we ain't got anything else for you. You know, just kind of nice. They're like, okay, and they ride off. Well, later on, the Hound is chopping wood and taking care of stuff over in the bush, and he hears sound, so he runs back to town and runs back to the campsite, and here everybody is dead, everybody's slaughtered, and the Septon is hung. And the crazy thing is, right before they hung him, the Septon had told him, you know, I don't know which god you serve, you know, might be the Lord of Light, might be this one, might be that one, the old gods or the new. He was like, but the fact that you're still here means that the gods have a plan for you. And I thought that was really cool, because everybody can apply that to their lives. The fact that you're still here means that you're still part of the plan. And we all know, especially if you're a book reader, that Sandor Clegane, who is the Hound, is the brother to what's his first name? all I can think of, Sandor and Sir Gregor Clegane, who is the Mountain, Frankenmount. So I'm wondering if those two are ever going to clash, because they've had their odds since childhood. So I'm thinking that that's going to happen. Not quite sure. Don't mark that one down. But yeah, so he tells him that, you know, there's still a plan for you. So when the Hound sees that everybody who he had just recently cared about is dead, he's kind of livid. He picks up an axe and he walks off, and he's gonna go wreck some shop and get some revenge, and I love it. Margaery urges her grandmother Olenna Tyrell to go home, and Olenna's like, no, and Margaery's like, yes, please, you have to go home. The faith is the way, and you know, trying to do all this kind of stuff. And Margaery slips her a little note, and on the note it's a drawing of a flower, which we all know now to be kind of like, hey, take your butt home, and and it was like a kind of key to let her know that she wasn't really with this all the way. She was just kind of faking. I liked it. Jaime and Bronn kind of sneak up on the Freys at River Run to assist, and it's the worst siege you've ever seen in your life. Jaime and Sir Bronn of the Blackwater kind of take over and set things to right. The two Frey boys are standing there yelling up to the Blackfish like, we're gonna hang him if you don't give up. And he's like, well, hang him then. Hang Edmure. Okay. So when Jaime gets there, Jaime's like, this isn't how you do it. And because they never hung him, Jaime's like, he know that your word don't mean anything. So Jaime tells them, go get him some food, make sure he's bathed. And they was like, but he's our prisoner. He said, I'm taking over now. Go get him some food and make sure he's bathed. And then he asks to talk to the Blackfish, and he wants the Blackfish to surrender. The Blackfish is not surrendering, and Jaime's like, yeah, it's gonna have to come to blows. But they don't. Jon and Sansa are on their way to try and like raise an army, but they keep getting denied everywhere they go. When they get to Bear Island, they meet everybody's new favorite character, Lady Lyanna Mormont, who is about 10 years old and really out here with more chutzpah than an army of men. She kind of reads Jon and Sansa for filth, and then Sir Davos kind of warms her up, and she's like, you know what? House Mormont has kept the faith with House Stark for 1,000 years, and we will not break faith today. So Jon is like, oh, thank God. He's like, how many men can we expect from you? And she leans over to talk to her counsel, and she goes back like 62. And he's like, and she's like, listen, we're not a large house, but I can guarantee you that these 62 men are worth like 10 mainlanders. And Davos is like, you know what, if they anything like their lady, I'm quite sure they are. When they get to House Glover, they're turned down, and then Sansa reminds Lord Glover that it is his duty to answer when called, and he pretty much tells her, you know, kick rocks. Like, we were there with y'all for the Red Wedding and for this other stuff, and we got killed, so no. Sansa knows that they need more men to fight with, because now they just have like the 2,000 wildlings, a couple hundred or so from Castle Black, and then the 62 from Bear Island. So she's like, we need more men, we can't fight like this. And Jon like, no, we fight soon, because what? We're fighting now. I can't do nothing else. He sent ravens to people. They have not answered, but he's like, we gotta go. He's got my brother. We can't wait any longer. She's just like, nah, this ain't gonna work. She sends a mystery letter to someone who we don't know who it is, but we can see that she wrote her name and put her seal on it. She sends a mystery letter, and we're just all thinking, oh my God, who could she be sending this letter to? But we all know that there's only one person she could be sending this letter to. Yara and Theon are hanging out at a brothel, and you know what, he's still very much acting like Reek, and Yara can't stand it. So she pretty much tells him, you know what, drink this ale. And he's like, I don't want it. She's like, drink it. She's like, you gonna drink, pretty much, she said, paraphrasing, you gonna drink it until you give me back Theon Greyjoy and stop quivering in your boots. And lo and behold, by the end of that cup, he's pretty much back to Theon Greyjoy. And I appreciate her for doing that for him, because he could have been so much more, but he was so cowering and acting like Greek that it was a mess. We're in the Free Cities, and Aria has now booked passage on a boat to go home to Westeros. And she just kind of like, I don't know why this girl did this, but she's just kind of walking around the city and unprotected, and some old lady comes up to her and was like, sweet girl. Aria turns to her, and the woman stabs her in the stomach, and then flips her and puts her in like a chokehold and just stabbing her and twisting. And here we see it's the waif. Aria kind of headbutts her backwards, jumps over this bridge and lands in the water. The waif stands there and looks and makes sure she don't come up, and she doesn't. And Aria is presumed dead, so the waif leaves. Aria comes up out the water. She swam away, and she's coming up and she's walking through the city because she walks up some little steps. She walks through the city and she's bleeding, shaking, wet, and she looks like somebody stabbed a chihuahua, really. She's just all eyes and blood and water, and nobody's gonna help her. Everybody's looking at her, and at this point nobody's safe because of course with a house of black and white you can look like anybody. And so the last time we see her, she's wet, miserable, and wandering the streets. But I know she couldn't have died because episode 8 was entitled No One. Lady Crane is she fresh off her stage, and she hears a noise backstage, and she finds a half-dead Aria hiding in like the costumes. So she takes her home, she stitches her and bandages her up and kind of does it all tight and everything, and gives her like some nasty soup and some milk of the poppy, and like, you know what, you need to heal up and you can only do it while you're asleep. She's like, and trust me, if my soup doesn't kill you, nothing will. And when she said that, I was like, okay, so Aria doesn't die. Aria doesn't die this episode, because if you pay attention, there's always some little point in the episode that'll tell you what's happening. If the soup doesn't kill you, nothing will. A few days pass. Had to have been a few days because when it kicked over to other different parts of the story, it had been days there. A few days pass, and the waif shows up looking like a man at Lady Crane's house and kills Lady Crane, and then confronts Aria like, yeah, the many-faced god was owed a name, had to pay that back, and now I get to get you. Aria jumps out the window, and they do the most epic run chase scene, jumping, knocking over stuff, rolling down things ever, and it makes you wonder how good that soup was. Soup, milk of the poppy, and some stitches could have done wonders for Khal Drogo when he died. But they're doing this big old chase, and finally the waif catches up with Aria back in the little hubby hole where she was staying, like in the little basement room, and the candle's lit, and she's like on her knees, and she's like, so you're either gonna die standing up or on your knees, take your pick, but either way you finna go. And the waif is smiling, and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna kill you. And Aria stands up and she grabs Needle, and she looks really, really hurt. She looks so hurt. Aria stands up and she's got Needle, and she's like, I told you that would never save you. And then you see a peace come over Aria, and you know that the whole time she's probably been faking. And she cuts the candle, the room goes dark, and the next thing you know, the House of Black and White, Jack and Hagar, is following like some bloody footprints to the wall, and there's a new face on the wall, and lo and behold, guess whose face it is? The waif's. And Aria's behind him like, oh, so you told her to kill me? And he's like, yeah, you know, pretty much, yeah, she had to kill you. And Aria's like, oh, okay. He was like, well, you know what, now a girl can become no one. Now a girl is no one. And she said, no, I'm Arya Stark of Winterfell, and I'm going home. And I was like, yes, little girl, go home and kill all these people. Help your sister, she needs it. From there we go to the Hound, who walks up on some of the brothers without banners, and they're sitting around chilling, telling filthy stories and everything. And he pretty much walks up with his axe in hand. Dude turns around and he just whack and like cuts his head off. Like no talking, no nothing. He just walks up and kills, and he's about it. It's 3 of them sitting there. He kills all 3, but he tries to ask the last one where the other guys are, and he's like, I won't tell you. And he says some really vulgar things, and he's like, is that your last words? You really suck at dying. And then he kills them, and he goes off, and he's walking around getting ready to find the other ones who have killed his friends. He comes upon them with some other brothers of the banners, but the 3 that he won are now set to hang. And he's like, hey, I need them. And they was like, well, what you doing here? He's like, I'm here for them because, you know, I'm looking for them. And the brothers without banners like, no, we're hanging them because they killed deceptive people, and you know, that ain't how we do it. And he was like, well, I'm here for the same reason. And they was like, well, since it was your friends, we'll give you 1. He was like, no, 2. So they're really haggling. He tries to get them with his axe, but they won't let him. They was like, no, we only hang them. So he hung them and then took the shoes off one. Cersei is kind of minding her business at the Red Keep when some of the sparrows come and kind of order her to leave it under the order of the High Sparrow. And she's like, no, I ain't going nowhere. I can't go. And they was like, well, you are deliberately refusing a direct order, and if you don't, then you're gonna you're actually going to be like in trouble. So if you don't leave, there's going to be violence. And she was like, well, I choose violence. This one dumb sparrow comes running up to the mountain and hits him in the chest with something that looks like a club with spikes on it. And the mountain just looks down and grabs the dude by the neck and squeezes so hard, and he throws him. And then all the other sparrows back up because they was not ready for this level of violence. And the mountain rips the man's head off and just kind of throws it and was like, what's up? Everybody's like, nah, this was a little more than what we were bargaining for, so we just gonna go. They run off, and Cersei's just like, okay. Brienne meets up with Jaime at the siege at River Run, and it's really weird because, you know, they got like a little love thing going on, and it's real odd. But she's telling him, you know, I'm gonna give you back your sword because you only gave me this so I could protect them, and now I'm done, so I'm gonna give it back. And she's like, you know, if I go in here and I can persuade the Blackfish to come with us, then we're gonna be enemies, and I don't really want to fight you, but I'm gonna have to fight you. And he was like, well, let's just hope it don't come to that. They're really weird though. I kind of like them as a couple a little bit, but whatever. So Brienne goes to talk to the Blackfish, and he's like, nope, I ain't giving it up. I ain't seen Sansa since she was a baby. I don't know her signature. I don't know nothing about this letter she gave you. No. And then he reads the letter, and he's like, dang, she sounds just like her mother. He's like, but I can't leave here. He's like, I can't give up my home, and I can't spare no men, so I don't know what to tell you. So she's pretty much like, all right. And she tells Podrick to send a raven back to Sansa saying she failed. Cersei was not notified that there was a meeting in the throne room, and they're pretty much like, yeah, we don't need to be notified. You can go stand in the back of the court with the women. So Tommen comes in and makes a decree, you know, the trials for Cersei Lannister. He's saying Cersei Lannister like that's not his mama. The trials for Cersei Lannister and Loras Tyrell will be on such and such date. And, you know, because, you know, the faith in the crown or so blah, 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 we're going to outlaw trial by combat because it's kind of brutal and you need to just be tested by the gods the way you're supposed to be. So she knows that as a direct dig at her. Her son is now coming for her and she's not for it. And it's not a good look for nobody. So she kind of looks defeated when it cuts off of her. She kind of looks like, now what am I gonna do? But true to Cersei, she's always got a plan. The guy who handles the little birds and her master of whispers, I think his name is Qyburn, he comes up and tells her, whispers in her ear, the rumor we had is true. And she's like, and he was like, it's so much more. And I'm like, oh, Cersei got a little something up her sleeve. Once again, the crew, Tyrion, Greyworm, and Missandei are chilling, and he actually got them to drink. And they hear this big old sound and hear, oh my god, the whole city's under attack, and they don't know what's going on. And then they hear something on the roof, and they're like, we're done. We are done. Greyworm sends some guards to the door. They open the door, and in walks Daenerys. And I promise you, Daenerys looks like your mother does when she comes home a little early and you have not done any of your chores. That's how she walked in the room. That's exactly how she walked in. Like somebody was getting a whooping and it wasn't gonna be good. Jaime actually threatens Ed Muir, saying that he's gonna launch his little baby son over the walls of River Run with a catapult if he doesn't get it back for him. So Ed Muir goes to the gate like, I command you to open it, I'm Lord of River Run, and they have to open it because he's truly Lord of River Run, even though the Blackfish is saying no. He gets in, he orders them to surrender, lower the gates, let the guards in. Blackfish is like, no thank you. And he helps Brienne and Pod get away. They're rowing on this boat, and he goes back in there to fight. Like, I'm gonna just go ahead and fight because I ain't getting ready to run away again. I ran away at the Red Wedding, not running away again. So he actually dies off camera, so I'm hoping he's alive. You never know. But Brienne and Pod are rowing away, and Jaime looks down and he sees her, and they do the weirdest little wave thing to each other. It's really weird, but you can kind of see if there's some tension there, and I do like it. Episode 9, Battle of the Bastards. It had been rumored that this was the name of the episode for so long that I thought it was a rumor until I checked, and it's true. Battle of the Bastards. It starts off with Marine under attack, fire everywhere, and Daenerys wants to act. She wants to burn them all, kill them all, burn their cities, and Tyrion's like, sound a lot like your Mad King daddy. It was kind of like it took her back. It took her back a little bit to have somebody say that to her, but he really kind of talked her off a ledge and was like, this ain't how we do it. Let's try another approach. So they meet up with the slavers, the 3 original slavers on the top of like the thing, to discuss surrender. And they're like, good, you need to discuss your surrender. And they was like, we ain't talking about us surrender, we're talking about you. And they was like, we ain't get ready to surrender. And Drogon comes up and like parks his big old self by Dany. They're afraid, of course they're afraid. Dany gets on his back and was like, oh, okay. She flies off, and as she's flying around surveying everything, because their ships are launching mad fireballs at the pyramid, the 2 dragons who Tyrion had unchained break out of their keep at the bottom of the castle. So they join them. So it's finally a dragon reunion after I don't know how many seasons of all 3 of them, and they're flying and they're like, woohoo, yeah, we're free. And Dany flies up over the ships, and I promise you, I waited for this moment since I first saw it in like season 2. She says Dracarys, and all 3 of them light these ships up with nothing but straight dragon fire. It is amazing, and this is the best way to start an episode. So pretty much she just ruined all their fleet. And now what? They continue to wreak havoc. Everybody's now running and scampering. They don't want no parts of her and her dragons. So as they're standing there, she's killing people over here. The Sons of the Harpy have now started attacking people at the city gates, and they're slashing them and beheading them. And then you hear all this screeching and horses, and in runs all these Dothraki warriors led by Dario Naharis, and they descend on the Sons of the Harpy and give them a furious beating of what for. While that's going on, Greyworm, Tyrion, and Missandei are still up on the top of the pyramid with the slavers, and Missandei pretty much says, you know, because y'all kind of disobeyed, you know, our queen says that one of you needs to die. And there's 2 of them on the outside and 1 in the middle, and the 2 on the outside said, him, he's not even for us, he don't speak for us, he's lowborn. And I mean, just really threw this guy under the bus. So Greyworm walks up with his knife, and dude gets on his knees like, please don't kill me, like I promise you I ain't really want to do this. In one swoop, Greyworm cuts the throat of both of the guys standing. Dude on his knees, his eyes, I promise you, were like biggest saucers. Tyrion walks up, puts his hand on his shoulder, and is like, you know what? You go tell your people that you alive because of Daenerys Stormborn. That's what you do. Run and tell that. It was amazing. Then we get to everything popping off at Winterfell. They first meet up like, hey, Jon is telling Ramsay, because Ramsay's got a couple friends. Jon has him, Sansa, and a couple people. And he's like, hey, let's not do this. Let's just battle this out between you and me and hash it out that way. And he's like, no. One-on-one, you can probably get me. But I know your army can't get mine. He's like, I got like 8,000 men. What, you got half that? He was like, yeah, so come in the morning. It's good. Sansa rides off. No, he's like, and it'll be good to have Lady Bolton back. Sansa's like, you're gonna die tomorrow. She just jumps out like, you're gonna die tomorrow. And yeah, so sleep well. She rides off. Ramsay's still talking trash to Jon and tells him, you know what, my hounds are gonna love eating you. I haven't fed them in 7 days. They're gonna be happy. People are kind of mad about that part that Sansa wrote off before that, but whatever. So Jon is like, you know what, I wonder if these men are still gonna want to fight for you when they find out you wouldn't fight for them. Ramsay is not fazed. So the next morning, it all starts. Everybody's lined up. Jon with his little teaspoon full of people, and Ramsay with like the biggest army ever. And Ramsay's horse is walking, and you can see the legs of the horse, and you can see he's holding some rope. And at the back of the rope is Rickon Stark. He's got him tied up pretty much like an animal, but it's by his wrist. So Ramsay takes him to the front of the army, where of course Jon can see, because they're probably about 2 football fields apart. And he pulls out a knife. I thought he was gonna stab the boy to pick with Jon. He's got 3 flayed people who are on fire, and I was just like, this Ramsay Bolton dude is nuts. And if you don't know what flay is, it's where they peel off all your skin. 3 fully skinned people who have been set ablaze. And Ramsay is like, whatever. He cuts Rickon's binds in his hands, and he said, we're gonna play a little game. You see over there? That's your brother. I need you to run to him as fast as you can. The faster you run, the faster you are to getting there. Rickon is dumb. And he like, oh, okay. So he starts trotting. He's like, no, you have to run. Those are the rules. When Ramsay says those are the rules, you need to know that you probably need to do something else. Rickon starts take off running in a straight line. Ramsay starts launching arrows at him, and we know Ramsay's good, but Ramsay is intentionally missing. Jon sees him running. Jon gets on his horse and starts riding toward him because I guess he, with his arm down, I guess he's gonna pick up his brother. The little boy, he's running in a straight line. Like he never knew nothing about zigzagging to make himself a harder target. Whatever. He's running. Ramsay's missing. Right as Jon goes to grab him, Ramsay catches him through the back and it comes out like his neck mouth area, and the boy goes down. Jon is hot. Ramsay's smiling. So Jon is sitting there on his horse looking at Ramsay like, I'm gonna get you. Tormund is behind with everybody else like, don't do it, just don't do it. Because now he knows, everybody knows that Ramsay wants you to play into his hand. Jon has been so caught up in his emotions that he can't help it. And he gives in. He rides straight for him. Ramsay has all of his archers launch arrows at Jon. Of course, one catches his horse. The horse goes down. Jon jumps up. He's now off his horse in the middle, closer to the Bolton side, with nothing but his sword. And Ramsay's got a whole army of like 8,000 people. So Davos tells the people, get after your commander, and half of their army starts running. Jon is just standing there like, let it be, Lord. Pulls out his sword and is like, let's get it. All these people are coming toward Jon, and it is the most unsettling moment because we just got him back in episode 2, and now in episode 9, chances are he might not make it. So right as they go to descend upon him, Jon's side of the army comes up. For a minute, Jon's kind of like stuck and doesn't know what to do. But finally, he gets in there. He starts fighting and swashbuckling. Ramsay's not doing anything but calling the archers to launch their arrows. Jon is fighting, covered in dirt, covered in blood, mud, everything. A horse fell on him a couple times or something, I don't know. And they're losing because there's so many men. The archers are literally taking out men from both sides. They don't care at this point. They just want to make sure that they die. Finally, after it looks like there's not going to be enough, Sir Davos and 1-1 and a few other wildlings have stayed back. They're like, let's get in there because if we don't get in there now, they probably ain't gonna make it. So once Ramsay sees that all of Jon's people are in the middle, in the thick of it, he says now to the other people that he's got waiting back. His other folks have shields that are like as tall as their bodies almost, and they come and they surround them with their spears out. So now everybody's surrounded and they're advancing slowly, killing you as they go. Lord Umber's behind, killing people who, there's a wall of bodies, and Lord Umber is back there killing anybody who tried to come out. They are beaten, and some of the wildlings are like, forget it, and they go running toward the back of the fray of it all, and they knock down Jon, and Jon gets dog piled on, and he can't breathe, and he's getting crushed, and in my heart, I felt like he was gonna die. He's so crushed, full of people, and Tormund is going hand to hand with Lord Umber, and Jon finally eased his way to the top and comes out making that big old deep breath like he did before when he first came back to life. And Jon's like, I don't think I'm gonna make it, this ain't looking good. Tormund is fighting Lord Umber, lost his sword, bit him in the neck, spit it out, and then killed him with some kind of ram's horn or something he had. Right when you thought everybody was gonna die, you hear these horns, and everybody from Jon's side kind of freezes. And Lord, I promise you, I screamed so loud when this played. You see the banners from the Vale, and like, I don't even know how many thousands of soldiers on horseback from the Vale with Sansa and Littlefinger leading them. Sansa just kind of like sits off over to the cut like, yep, told you we were gonna die today. And the Knights of the Vale come and they break through and they kill everything, and the next thing you know, Jon, 1-1, Tormund, and a couple of the other wildling guys have now scrambled up, and they're looking at Ramsay, and Ramsay's like, no. Ramsay turns around and beats it back to Winterfell. And it's like, lock the gate, their army's gone, they can't do nothing with us. And he was like, well, our army's gone too, like everybody's gone. He still has his archers, and there's a big thump in the gate, and I'm like, it's 1-1. 1-1 busts the gate, their gate open. They shoot him in the hand, they're spearing him. He's got like arrows sticking all out of him, and like a pincushion. And finally he gets through, and he's screaming, and he falls to his knees. Jon and everybody come in, and Jon and Tormund look up at 1-1 like, thanks dude. And right then Ramsay catches him in the eye, and he dies. Ramsay tells Jon, you know, you said you wanted this to be a one-on-one thing. Let's just go ahead and make this a one-on-one thing. So he pulls back his bow and looses one. Jon picks up a shield really quick that I finally found out was from Bear Island, and he blocks it. And he blocks the second one and the third one. And by the time Ramsay goes to launch the fourth one, Jon is on top of him. And when I tell you I counted the punches, he punched him in his face 21 times. Ramsay was smiling, face bloody. The only reason Jon stopped is because he looked up and he saw Sansa, and he knew that it was not really his fight, it was Sansa's fight. So they locked Ramsay up in the dog kennel where he belongs. At the end of the night, Lady Sansa came to greet him and told him pretty much, you're gonna disappear. Nobody gonna know nothing about you. Your house gonna disappear. All your words gonna disappear. And yeah, she sicked the dogs on him. And he was like, my dogs ain't gonna do nothing to me. They're loyal beasts. And she said, but you haven't fed them in 7 days. You said so yourself. And then the dog licks him, and he's like, get down, stop, get down. And the dog eats him. And Ramsay dies screaming amongst the dogs, just like he did with Lady Walda. And Sansa walks off with a little smile on her face. Absolutely loved Battle of the Bastards. And then you see the Bolton banners falling, and then they put up the banners of House Stark. And I promise you, it was a great day, and I thought nothing could top episode 9. But then again, I said that in episode 2, but nothing could top episode 9. It was completely epic. Loved all portions of it. And then it brings me to the final episode, episode 10, The Winds of Winter. This one starts off, it was so still and so morose, you almost knew something wasn't right. Bells tolling, and you can see Tom and Cersei, the High Sparrow, and Margaery all getting ready for the trial. The Sept of Baelor is filling up with people who've come to watch the trial. The Sparrows are all there, like everybody's there. The trial begins, and Loras still is out here looking like Reek, except they have shaved his hair. And he caved. They was like, you know, it's time for your trial. He's like, there's no need for a trial. I confess. I laid with Renly Baratheon. I did this. He told all his business. And finally, you know, he pledged himself to the Sparrows and said he would never father sons, never own lands. He renounced his name and his claim to, you know, Highgarden and all this other kind of stuff. And they carved the 7-pointed star in his forehead. And his father like went to protest, but there was nothing he could do. His Margaery was like, no, this is the way, it's for the faith. But then they're waiting for Cersei, and they're waiting, and Margaery comes up to the High Sparrow and she says, you know what, something's not right here. She was like, Cersei's not here, Tommen's not here. Why do you think they're not here? He's like, it don't matter, we're gonna go ahead with the trial anyway. And she's like, no, she knows the consequences if she doesn't show up, yet she still didn't show up. We all need to go. So he sends Lancel to go get her, bring her here. Lancel leaves, but he kind of gets sidetracked because he sees a little kid looking sneaky running off. For some reason, instead of doing as he's told, he goes to chase the kid. He runs up under the Sept, and the kid is like hiding. He's got his little torch. Just come out now. The kid stabs him in the spine. He falls. His legs are of no use. And he's looking around with this thing. Oh my God, he's so hurt. And he sees at the far corner what looks like fluorescent antifreeze. And there's 3 candles in it. 3 pools and 3 candles. And he's like, snap, this is bad. So he's pulling himself to it to blow it out. In the meantime, Cersei's done getting dressed, and she's sipping the wine, and she's just unbothered. Don't care. And Tommen is ready to leave, so he goes to leave, and he's waiting for his security. But the Mountain shows up. He was like, okay, I need to be going now. And the Mountain's like, you ain't finna move. And he blocks his way. So he knows now that he can't get past the Mountain, so he might as well stay put. He stands there and he's just like, yeah, I kind of give up. The High Sparrow's in there like, yeah, we just going to try Cersei. And Margaery's like, we gotta go. She grabs Tommen. She's like, everybody, let's go. We all need to get out of here. There's a big panic. Everybody needs to run. Underneath the sept, Lancel was still trying to get there. He doesn't get there in time. And the High Sparrow's like, what? Everything's fine. Everybody chill out. And the whole building goes up in big green flames. Kapow! Here, the rumor that Cersei had heard the day that Tommen announced she couldn't have trial by combat at her trial was that yes, there were different thousands of kegs of wildfire still hidden up under the Sept of Baelor. And now the whole Sept is dead and everybody's dead in it. The whole House Tyrell is dead except Olenna. Like, all of them. Loras is dead. Margaery's dead. Their father, Lord Tyrell, is dead. The High Sparrow, all his little sparrows, even the sparrows that was outside. I promise you, that explosion cleared out at least an 8-block radius. And Cersei is standing there in her window watching it. The look on her face when the breeze blew back on her was like the one you get when you're smelling fresh laundry that's been hanging on the line outside. Like, she looked so happy about that. But Tommen was in his chambers watching it as well. And that boy looked absolutely shocked and traumatized. And what he ended up doing was he stood there and he watched it, and one of the servants was like, I'm sorry, Your Grace. And Tommen was just like, he took his crown off, he went off screen and laid it aside, and when he came back, he just stepped up onto the window and fell. It's like Fallout Boy. Didn't think about it, didn't hesitate, nothing. Stepped up, fell out. And this just goes to bring up the prophecy that Cersei kind of had in season 5, where yes, she would have 3 children, but they would all have golden shrouds, and she would see that, which means now Tommen is her last living child and he is now dead. When she goes to view his body, it is the most cold thing I've ever seen in my life. She's just like, okay, yeah, bury his body. I mean, she said burn his body and then bury his ashes where the Sept once stood. She didn't care at all. From there, from King's Landing, we kick over to Walder Frey and Jaime Lannister having like this big celebratory dinner because they've now taken back River Run. And Jaime pretty much tells Walder he was good for nothing. Like, you don't really do anything. Later on, Walder is given extra food from his new cupbearer slash servant who had been making eyes at Jaime Lannister, or what I thought was making eyes. And he's like, where's Black Walder and Otho? I think that's his name, Otho. He was like, you know, they were supposed to be back by midday. And she was like, they're here, my lord. And he's like, what? There's nobody in the room. It's just him eating. And she's like, they're here, my lord. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she puts his plate in front of him. She says, they're here. And here it's a meat pie. And when he lifts up the crust, in it is like a thumb and a finger. And she said, you know, Black Walder was the hardest to carve. I was like, oh my God. She's carved. And then she pulls off her face. And it's Aria. And she looks down at him and she says, I am Arya Stark. The last thing I want you to know is that you died. The last thing I want you to know before you died is that a Stark was smiling down at you. And she slits his throat and then holds him with this serene look on her face that was really creepy until he stops moving. That's a name off Arya's list. Later on, we get Sam and Gilly at the Citadel. He's finally there, and Sam has the biggest nerd moment ever when he's allowed to see the Citadel's library. Of course, Gilly and the baby couldn't go back in there because, you know, babies and books isn't really a good thing when the books have like real actual pages, and they have this thing against women at the Citadel. But Sam got to go in there and look at the books and had the biggest nerd moment ever, probably like I would if somebody told me that I could have all the free books that I wanted. After that, John is at Winterfell with Melisandre, and he's telling her about the good old days when they used to have banquets in the banquet hall. and he always had to sit down there. And she's like, well, at least you had a family. Davos storms in and throws her a stag that he found that used to belong to Shireen on the battlefield, you know, right before the battle started. And he was like, so tell him what happened. And Jon's like, so what's that? And she was like, this used to belong to the Princess Shireen. And he was like, what happened? And he was like, she said we burned her at the stake. And Davos asked permission to kill her, and Jon actually gave her a little bit of mercy and says that she has to pretty much get away from Winterfell and don't come back, and if she ever comes back north, then he'll hang her. And Davos was like, no, you come back up here, I'm gonna get you myself. So she rides off and we don't see her no more. The word on the street is she might be pregnant, and that's why she's not, then that's why she's kind of out, but I don't know. We'll see what's going to happen in season 7. Olenna Tyrell is in Dorne, and she's now hooking up with the Sand Snakes, and she reads Obara for filth, and I loved it. So now they have to link up together because they know that they both have a common enemy. And the old saying is that an enemy of my enemy is my friend. So I guess that's what they're going as. And she was like, I can give you what you need to survive. And she's like, I don't want to survive. Olenna's like, I ain't trying to survive. I'm old. My house is gone. I ain't trying to survive. So out comes Varys, and he was like, fire and blood. And that's what I knew, because fire and blood is a Targaryen house words that Varys was going to have to link up Dorne and Tyrell, because they, of course, have the extra ships that Dany would need. So, cut over to Daenerys telling Daario, because he's like got all these big wild dreams about what he's going to do in Westeros, and she's like, yeah, you can't come. And he's like, what? And she's like, you can't come because I'm gonna have to marry when I get there. And he was like, but kings take their mistresses. She was like, oh, so that's what you want? It pretty much summed it up to the fact that he can't go with her and he's throwing a hissy fit. But I do find it quite lovely that she wants Jorah by her side, even though Daario has been taunting him this whole time. Tyrion gets named Hand of the Queen, and he teared up a little bit, and I promise you it was one of the best moments that I have seen for Tyrion. He's grown so much as a character, and I absolutely love him. Tyrion's my favorite, and if anything happens to Tyrion, we riot. Let me see. Littlefinger wants Sansa. He catches her in the Godswood up at Winterfell and is like, this is all I've ever wanted, you know, me on the Iron Throne and you with me. And she's like, that's a nice picture. He goes to kiss her and she's like, boop. She stops him and was like, yeah, you pretty much work for yourself. And he was like, but I'm getting ready to profess my allegiance to House Stark. She was like, you've been in line to a lot of houses. Bran has warged back into the Tower of Joy because he's nosy and he wants to see a few things. And he gets there and he's just, you know, a bystander, and Ned Stark's running up the room. He sees his sister laying there in the bed, pool of blood, and she's like, oh my God, is it you, Ned? And Ned's like, yeah, it's me. And she's like, you have to promise me, you have to protect him. She leans in close and says something. His name is, and we don't know. There's some speculation. She's like, but you have to, you know he will, you have to protect him. And then some lady from the side hands him a baby, and the baby is just looking at him, and he's like, dang, now I'm got a baby. And the baby opens his eyes and looks, and then we cut to Winterfell to Jon. This right here proved a lot of fan theories right, that R plus L equals J, that Rhaegar plus Lyanna equals Jon Snow. And everybody's like, well, why is his hair not white? Well, it's known that when you mix Targaryen with anything else, the other trait takes over, and the Starks mostly have darker hair. Ta-da! So that's that one. We're still thinking that he's got to be Targaryen. We're still on the fence about that, but I'm thinking he's got to be Targaryen, because why would she need him to hide him from Robert if that was his real son? So it cuts back to Jon over at Winterfell, and the guys are there, and everybody's like, yeah, well, we can't be pledging to you, and you got all these wildling stuff, and we ain't gonna fight. And Glover, Manderly, everybody's just kind of going all off. And little Lyanna Mormont stands up, and she's like, you know what, Lord Manderly, you didn't answer the call. Glover, you didn't answer the call. Read him for filth. And then was like, but you know what? Jon Snow is my king from his first day until his last day. I don't care if he's a bastard. We've been with House Stark for 1,000 years. She's like, and he's my king. So then they get up like, yeah, she speaks kind of harsh, but yeah, King of the North. And everybody's really excited about this King of the North. And Jon is just like, oh my God, I can't even believe this. And Sansa looks over and Littlefinger's looking at her like, which now makes me wonder if Littlefinger's going to do something to Jon in the next season. Probably. So Jaime Lannister has now done celebrating with the Freys, and he makes it back to King's Landing in time enough to see all this smoke and everything still going on, because you know, after a big building like that burns, it's gonna be smoke for days. And he gets there and he rushes into the throne room right in time for Cersei's crowning, and the look on his face is like, oh my God, here we go again, because Cersei has now done exactly what the Mad King did. And Jaime killed the Mad King for that reason. So now I'm wondering if he's gonna have to kill her, because that's also a part of the prophecy, is that someone younger is gonna kill her. I think it's a younger brother is gonna kill her. And of course Cersei was born first, so that does make Jaime younger than she is. The final scene was the best ever not for the season. I would say some of that stuff in the battle was the best for the season, but this was the best cliffhanger to bridge you over to season 7. It was all of the ships from Dorne, Tyrell, House Tyrell, the Greyjoys, and the new ones with dragons on them, going across the sea, meaning Dany and all the Dothraki, the Second Sons, the Unsullied, and pretty much all these armies are now on their way to Westeros, and season 7 is going to start off with a bang, because they'll get there by then. Everybody's wondering how people travel so fast. They'll get there by then. So yeah, next season promises to start off with a big, huge bang. Let's talk about some of these fan theories down here in the comments. Do you really think that Jon is the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark? That's number 1. Do you really think that? Number 2, do you think that Aria is going to be able to cross off any more names off of her list? Because, you know, Cersei Lannister and the Mountain are on that list as well. Let's see. Was Jaime Lannister on her list? I don't remember. Then there's another one saying that Sansa Stark is probably pregnant with Ramsay Bolton's baby. Do you believe that? Is Littlefinger going to start some drama between Jon and Sansa? That's another thing out there that's floating around. Do you think Jaime is going to kill Cersei? Or do you think it'll be Tyrion? And do you think Jaime's going to end up with Brienne? Another one that I would like to see for the long haul is, because there are 3 dragons and there's supposed to be 3 dragon riders, do you think, because this is how I'm thinking it's going to be, do you think that it's going to actually be the last 3 Targaryens, which will be Dany on one, of course, which is Drogon, Jon Snow on the other one, and Tyrion Lannister on the final? Do you think that? Let's talk about this season 6 of Game of Thrones down in the comments. Everybody knows I'm always responding to your comments. When you leave one of my other videos, I always try to respond. So let's go ahead and talk about season 6 of Game of Thrones down here in the comment box. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, ask me questions. I like them. And if you need me to binge watch anything else, let me know, and I'll make sure that I get onto that so we can talk about that too and give you my spin. And also, is anybody else curious how Aria got back to Westeros that fast? Because I know everybody was talking about how Varys gets around. Is anybody concerned about how Aria got that fast? And because we lost 3 direwolves so far, Lady, well no, 4 so far. We lost Lady, and then we lost Shaggy Dog, Summer, and whatever Robb Stark's wolf's name was. And the only 2 out here that we have now, oh, Grey Wind. The only 2 dire wolves we have now are Ghost and Nymeria, who is still wandering around somewhere. I heard from the books, I'm not that far in the books, leading a pack of other wolves somewhere over in Westeros. Do you think that those wolves are going to come into play in season 7? And also in season 7, do you think we're going to see another epic White Walker battle? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll be sure to answer all of your questions or kind of give you my fan theory as well. All right, everybody, this has been a long review of Game of Thrones Season 6. I'll see you next time. Bye.